So what we do on Let Us Explain is dive deep on something that we can't stop thinking about for other people who can't stop thinking about that thing too. That means we'll be talking about anything and everything. Sometimes that includes spoilers. But before we jump into the spoiler zone, let's talk more generally about 1917. I am your co-host, Zachary Shevich, and joining me, he looks like me, but older. It's Arturo Zurita.
How you doing, Zach? I'm excited. This was my last anticipated movie of the year. Granted, Cats hasn't come out yet, but I was very excited for this. I think we all saw it in a big screen, Dolby. I saw mine in Dolby. I don't know what y'all saw yours in. You need to see this in the biggest screen possible. We're talking about 1917, and we got someone who believes it's going to win Best Picture.
Yes,
Fernando.
also joining us, doing this whole review in one take. It's Fernando the intern. Say what up, Fernando.
What's up? Best picture, yeah. Possibilities.
Yeah.
I guess we'll get into that in this Let Us Explain. But yeah, definitely see this on the biggest screen, IMAX, Dolby, whatever it is. It's going to be worth it.
Yes, they're going for an immersive experience here with this movie. Oscar-winning filmmaker Sam Mendes has made a variety of notable films. His first, American Beauty, won a total of 5 Oscars, including Best Picture and a Best Director prize for Mendes. His most successful, probably 2012, Skyfall, the highest-grossing James Bond movie ever, so successful that he was brought back for the not quite as successful Spectre. Mendes's latest effort is 1917, an immersive recreation of a World War I standoff between the British and the Germans in northern France. Teaming up here with the extraordinarily talented cinematographer Roger Deakins, 1917 is filmed to look like 2 long uncut shots. I just want to point that out. It's
true.
Like 2 long shots.
Yeah, it's 2 long shots.
It may remind filmgoers of the Best Picture winning film Birdman or the second half of the film Climax, which came out earlier this year. However, Art, what is it about the way in which 1917 was filmed and presented that separates it for you from other achievements in long take cinema?
I'm a connoisseur of long takes. I very much enjoy them. I'm very biased to them. All the movies that go up there is, I don't want to make sure I say it right because I always say it wrong.
Scorsese to
Scorsese. But when we're talking about like a whole movie's being shot in one long take, I keep calling it Veronica, but I know it's Victoria, right? I think I got it right this time. That's all done in one long take. And many times just the ambition, right? You could see the cameraman breathing, right? If you're going to do the whole long take. Here, as you said, it is broken down into 2 different ones. It's covering something that, Dunkirk kind of covered not too long ago. But I think it covers it in a way that is just, you said it perfectly, immersive. I feel like I'm in there. The way that the camera moves either from being behind them or in front of them, but it's one of those things where, I know we say Birdman, but to be honest with you, it was another Chivo movie that I was thinking about a lot, The Revenant. There would be moments where you're just walking over, you're wondering what the characters are going to do to cross over this water. Then they start crossing and you're like, no, how's the camera doing this? Right. I know that a lot of times many people say, you had mentioned the Goodfellas scene and where it really shows you the extravagance of being able to walk into this, in one take, the world of being a mobster and how everybody knows him and he's going into the Copacabana. But in here, a lot of people are going to argue that it's too showy just for the case of being showy. It's Deakins. I don't know what you're talking about. I still think, comparing it to another movie that does a lot of long takes and does a very good job visually, is Columbus, a much smaller movie, but one in where 2 characters are talking, you're seeing a divide between them, and the more that they get to know each other as they're walking down, a gate that's open shows you their relationship and how they've opened up to each other a bit more. I think this movie does the same thing to a scale that we've never seen before, because there was no explosions in Birdman.
So we're talking about long take cinema, and the idea of a long take, or a oneer as it's sometimes called, is something that different filmmakers have experimented with, and I think even more so in recent years as Steadicam technology has improved, and with films like Birdman, films like 1917 even, that have used some computers to stitch together certain shots, it's become increasingly simpler to do that one take. And ideally, so a lot of people are doing this one take, and it's not necessarily for a reason. There's a movie with Elizabeth Olsen that I remember.
In the House, yes.
Yeah, where it just didn't feel as necessary.
Yep.
Dreamhouse, maybe something like that.
Something like that.
But you ideally want the one take to be adding to your experience of the film, and 100%. I felt like in Birdman it was a great way to kind of like keep you within the chaos of that environment, not give you a break. This is taking that to a different extreme because you're escaping gunfire and running away from explosions. So it's that idea of you're watching them on this full journey. You're not getting a break the way they're not getting a break. So there is a justification here, I believe, at least for why you would want to watch this story in one take.
A question I would ask, and I asked this for Fernando as well. Did you ever feel, because one of the biggest problems with one takes is like, oh, it's a one take, so we're not going to cut, so we're just going to stay with them. Man, it would have been really easy if we would just cut right now. We're going to stay with them. Did you ever feel a scene where you're like, this is a one take, so we're just going to have to walk with them for a bit? Did you ever feel that at all during the movie, or did it all work perfectly for you?
No, it all worked perfectly for me. And I think a big reason for that is the two guys they got to be our eyes and who we follow. And comparing this to like Birdman and Victoria, this is like on another level because, as you mentioned, those don't have explosions or big or stunts. You know, I think the scariest
Birdman
thing
has one tiny one before someone calls me out in the comments.
The action set pieces in this film are definitely on a different level. There's no planes diving in front of the actors in Birdman.
Yeah, sir. The scariest scenes in Birdman and Victoria are like when there's like crowds of people, right? And you know, they're not even like aware that they're like probably in the movie. But this, like, the plane, the explosion runs, the trenches, and just the way that they had to construct everything, where Birdman and Victoria take place in like little towns and like one location, like this. Yeah. This takes place in exteriors, just complete exteriors, pretty much. And they have to plan everything out. And Deakins, I don't know how the hell he does it at like 80 something. But
you know, one of those insane things is like, we were talking about the water ones, right? I don't know which one did it for you guys, where you were like, how? Nah, how? There was simple things such as like, you know, when you're trying to take, everyone does this, when you try to take a picture with your cell phone and then you go outside and it's like, there's too much light in the background, whoever I'm shooting is too dark, right? It's shadows, whatever else. Or you'll go from, you know, inside to outside and your camera will just, he was doing just simple shots of going out in the bright to the dark, back to the bright. I was like, how'd you do that?
Roger Deakins is 70, by the way. Let's not age my man up too much. He's got plenty of years to still give us this amazing, type of cinematography. The amazing shots that he's able to put together in films like this and many others. Fernando, you complimented the actors, Dean Charles Chapman and George McKay, who we spend a majority of the film with. We're following. While they're both very good, I would say you really got to give it up for the production design of this movie. Just the way in which they're able to keep the environments interesting and different and varied in a way that makes it feel like you're not just going in circles, but filled in a way that it feels like full of life. I'm really curious to know how many extras they needed, particularly for some of those trenches shots. They're just like stunning, just as a feat of technical filmmaking. It's really, really, I'm in awe of what they attempted and accomplished here in many ways. Although I would say there were parts of the story that I didn't necessarily feel were paced quite as well, where I did kind of feel like we are sort of just watching them move. We're moving from one scene to the other. Part of me thinks, like, do I really need an establishing shot rather than a couple moments of silence with our main two corporals? You know, I don't know if it's necessarily better one way or the other, but I did feel the sort of breaks between scenes, if you will. There were moments where they would transition
I feel you.
out of the bunker and into the open field or something like that.
I'm in the middle between both of you. I understand what you're saying. But I agree with you also with that production design thing. That's why I brought up Kogonada's Columbus. Like you said, if the production design and where they went, like you said, into the trenches, that was their blocking. If they don't hit that in time, the camera, the mise-en-scene, whatever you're going to call it, it's not telling the story it's supposed to if they are not within what they need to be, especially when you start dealing with stunts. If they are not standing at the right position, you're screwed. You ruin the entire scene. And when it comes to a one take, I don't know if you've seen the featurettes to this thing, when it comes to the one take, if they are not hitting the markers when they need to hit the markers, you're screwed. It's not tape on the floor. It's you got to be there in the trench by this point or else you're done. And we got to reset the entire thing. And like you said, how many extras? How many extras you got to reset and redo the makeup of before you get there? Yeah, no, it's honestly one of the biggest technical achievements I would say this year, easily.
Yeah. The momentum in the story is driven from this main plot, which involves two recruits who are enlisted to travel a long distance in a day in order to stop British soldiers from walking into a German trap.
Yes.
It also tries to ground it in an emotional way by setting up the situation where one of the two recruits has a brother among the soldiers who might die if the attack goes through. So, Fernando, how invested did you feel in the mission throughout the movie?
It's crazy how such a simple plot did keep me involved for the whole duration of the time, and I feel that is a credit to Mendes and the way he directed it and the way he chose to have certain moments pop up, halfway through. We'll get into it later, but there's a moment that's really pivotal to the story that kind of throws you into wait, where do they go from here scenario. But just the way that the two actors, McKay and what was the other guy's name? I forget his actual name, but Tommen from Game of Thrones.
Chapman, Dean Charles Chapman.
Dean Charles Chapman.
The way that they continue and their chemistry works really well together. You can tell that they are friends in the war together.
Perfect way to put it.
And they bring that up. They bring that up later in the movie. That they get thrown into this like they had no idea. And that's one thing they bring up, they're like, I hadn't, someone just told me get your things and pick someone. And then they get thrown into this,
that stunned shock that they have to go through.
Yeah.
It's like before you even have a chance to process what's happening, you are on the mission.
And I love how Tommen was like, I'm sorry, I picked you because I thought we were going to get a good journey or something. He's like, why'd you have to pick me? I didn't know. Hey, look at it this way. You're going to get your reward. Yeah, but I was stuck over here. It was funny. You're right. It actually felt like they had known each other prior to the movie starting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, and that helps make it involving in the sense that, there's that established history that you feel like they have. There's that dynamic that evolves because they're sort of negotiating, are we really doing this in a way? And that, rather than making them just plain, blank-faced soldiers in a way, it really does ground it and make you kind of in their shoes in a way.
Especially because for one, the mission is a lot more than just we have to save lives of random British soldiers
we haven't seen or don't know.
For one of them, it's a lot more than that. It's about his brother.
Just to get a little bit in the weeds with this movie, other films have the benefit of let's go cut away to the other soldiers, let's show them, make you connect with them before they potentially are a risk at death. This is a movie that has to stay in the moment, so making that familial relationship there is a clever trick that they have too, to tie you without actually showing you the brother.
One of the things that I know we were going to mention, and to go along with that, and that I think also keeps up the pace, is that there's almost checkpoints. You're right, we don't cut to other people, but we meet other squadrons or I don't want to say who they are, but they do a great job of using very well-known actors at certain points of the movie who he kind of checks up with or help him to the next checkpoint. Genius.
Yeah.
Did this movie remind you of a video game at all?
Yes.
Either of you guys?
Yes.
I did see that comparison a lot as critic screenings were happening and stuff. And Art bringing up using the word checkpoints does give it that video game connotation. I do get it. I personally didn't see it as a video game, but I do understand.
That's fair.
How people
not to take away from it, but just the concept of how you're really almost like a first person perspective of it as you're following them. What did you think of the cameos? Because I personally thought it was a genius way of using people we already know, kind of like Matt Damon is used several times in a lot of things, where you don't need to know that they're a trustworthy general. It's that guy. All right, I know who it is. Because in our screening, by the time you see the guy in the tent, who he's supposed to tell the thing to, people laughed. We're like, it's him. I didn't know if those are given away in the trailer or not, but a lot of people really enjoyed those.
I think they're given away in the trailer because when I did a Google image search of 1917, the last famous actor was the first thing that came up. But yeah, that thing you're mentioning where you meet these new squadrons and they're led by these like notable stars of British film and television, I think, lends this gravitas to those situations. Obviously, the first one, I think it's fair enough to spoil that Colin Firth is the first notable actor we see since he gives most of the monologue in the trailer. When he shows up to tell you something, you're like, okay, this is important. I have to listen to
King's speech. Firth. Yeah, let's see what he's got to say. But leading up to it, I also thought and I'm curious to see how they done this, because I've seen a lot of stuff dealing with the camera work. I've seen a lot of stuff dealing with the blocking, but I'm very curious how they did a lot of the makeup and stuff. I don't know when we're getting to spoilers, but I'm going to pause that one right there.
We'll get to spoilers in a second. Okay. I want to go back to the video game idea for just a second, because something that Art had mentioned in our conversations off of air is how the movie has this very smooth and clean cinematography. I think you had mentioned that like the lens never even gets dirty in the movie, which is like incredible. Yes. I'll admit. It's extremely, extremely impressive. Upon reflection, though, I do wonder if that maybe took me out of the movie in some ways. That's part of the video game feel. While the soldiers are kind of flailing about and they're desperately trying to shield themselves from gunfire or run away from explosions,
or dust or everything. Yeah,
the camera is really calm, and it's this sort of like juxtaposition that, I don't know, made me feel relaxed when maybe I should have been feeling tension.
Interesting. Okay, yeah, I can't even argue with you there, because I thought the exact same thing, but that's only because I've been so used to a certain cinematographer, Lubeski. Yeah. Lubeski does this movie. What did I say? That thing looking like a Pollock painting. Lubeski at any point, even if there's no water, would have put water. He does it in The Revenant. He does it in Children of Men. Something that he loves to do. You're right. The camera is in like the Grand Rapids during one scene, in the water. Never gets wet. Nothing ever comes on screen. And I wonder, again, dealing with the makeup, also how much digital things did they take out? I know that there was wires and stuff that you take out, but it's like that was impressive. It's curious. It's interesting to hear that to you. It kind of takes away from that, because a lot of people don't like things being in front of the camera. Right. But
I'm curious to what extent this is like just taste,
Yeah, that's interesting. Fernando?
No, it worked for me. So it's
you have to pick right now. It's either Chivo or it's Deakins. You got to pick right now.
I mean, I love Chivo. I mean, Chivo's my boy.
You biased. I'm looking at the flag in the back. You're biased. We're moving on.
Okay, so let's open this thing up to 1917 spoilers. If you can't handle the truth or you haven't yet seen the movie, now's your chance to get out and watch a spoiler-free edition of the Uncut podcast, including our recently published Best TV of 2019. So go check that out. Art, about halfway through the movie, the stakes change drastically.
I liked it.
After a tense scene where a German plane falls out of the sky right in front of us. Again, what a technical achievement most of this movie is. One of our two central characters is ultimately, again, spoilers, killed, leaving George McKay's character on his own for the rest of the film. What did you think of this moment in the movie and what it did for the rest of 1917?
What is it with the Game of Thrones kids not just walking in a straight line to escape things? This was the moment that I was telling you, the way that they flushed out his face.
Yeah.
I was wondering about that too, because without it must have been some digital effect, because that actor goes from looking alive to looking dead by the end of that scene, and it's just one long take.
Incredible. Yeah. Just the idea of having that come halfway through, and I was like, oh man, that sucks. The fact, the way that the movie ends of meeting his brother, which again I had completely forgot he was Tommen, and then you get another Game of Thrones actor coming in. But I love how that scene resonates again. Like you said, it happens halfway through the movie, but at the end it really comes into play when his brother won't even close his hand because he refuses to close it and accept the fact that his brother died. He's so happy. He was like, "Where's my brother? Oh, you and my brother. Oh, he's in the same squadron you are. Gone." And I thought it was a beautiful kind of a bittersweet moment where just moments prior he had saved him. So the one who died goes, "Oh, I guess I got my award." Only for him to die and the other guy to kind of do the big saving for him to get the award in a way. It was kind of like, bittersweet, but I don't know. I like that. I thought it was a huge surprise. First of all, the plane falls out of the sky. Like, what in the world is going on? They don't even move out of the way. And then I thought it was over when the soldiers start coming in, which I don't know where they came from or how he didn't hear them. It ends up being his people, which helps out to the next degree. But I don't know. What did you guys think?
That scene when it happened, and I think a big credit to it is the fact that the trailers for this movie are cut. Like there's cuts. So when it happens, like I didn't expect it to happen because I didn't know the way the trailer was made, what scenes happened where, because I knew it was in one take. Right. So they never show Dean Charles like in other scenes with George McKay. But I just thought they were like...
But you don't think it. Yeah, exactly.
You're not thinking about it. So when it does happen, I was like, wait, is he actually dying? Because, in the build-up, he's like, nah, well, like, I'm going to try to save you. But no, the way his face turns white was incredible.
How he dies, too, remember?
Yeah.
He's trying to help the pilot. And then the pilot stabs him, very Saving Private Ryan, towards that last act, thinking that you're going to be okay, trying to help somebody else, and then it turns to bite you.
And
I thought that was a...
Yeah, and just the way that different people perceive war, I think, because what you mentioned with the like reward that they get, they have a conversation earlier in the movie where George McKay's character had already won. I forget what, like a Purple Heart, I think it was, for like a heroic act in war. And Dean Charles is like super hyped about it. He's like, "Yo, that must have been awesome! Like, congratulations!" And then he's like, "Oh, it was whatever." And then he's like, "What do you mean it was whatever?" He was like, "I don't have it anymore." He traded it in for wine, right? And it's like for him, that's not something that he necessarily cares about. Like, he's just trying to survive. And Dean Charles, like, he wants that. Like, and when he saves him from the mine, he's like, "Congrats, you're gonna get one."
You got it. I love that. I bought Dunkirk in 4K. I'm gonna rewatch it. We have friends of the show. Chase loves that movie. Has told me to rewatch it. My biggest thing, as Zach had mentioned earlier, this isn't a movie where they really feel like blank faces. I love that you get to see a relative, and I feel like you really do get to know them because the amount of time that you spend with them. I get what they were going for in Dunkirk. I liked this because, like you said, that character couldn't fathom selling it for wine. Why? Because it runs in his family. Even his brother was a general. Like, so to him, he wanted to be like his brother, which is why it hurts so bad at the end when you see the brother not wanting to accept and closing the hands that his brother had passed, because that's his little bro and that's his big bro that he looked up to, and he wanted to have an award just like he did. And I was like, all right, I mess with this heavy. Even towards the end, Zach, you talk about that scene before we move on to something else.
I mean, I was just going to say that it to me is one of the standout sequences, not only technically but emotionally. Just, I think you go through a lot in that scene, and the way that it's able to, you have the twists and turns of it where they're not sure whose plane it is, if it's the English plane or the German plane, and they immediately go into let's save this soldier mode, and the way in which that scene is able to present the imminent danger and life or death situations that they're in, I think is just so effective. Plus, we talked about the way in which the actor is able to get across those final few moments. I was just really awed by it. So for me, that's the best sequence of the movie. I don't know about either of you, if you thought that was the best sequence, if you thought that final stretch was the best sequence.
Yeah, I guess I'll chime in and say that hands down my favorite moment is the run, I guess you can call it. They show it in the trailer, but it's
the standout shot.
But you don't get the context of it.
They literally say, "Ladies and gentlemen." Is he gonna do it? And he does.
And just because the way, and also this is again a big congrats to the production design. But they really show you how most people are familiar with World War II. Like World War II gets made movie like every year. People know about World War II, but World War One, like for the soldiers, the trench warfare is awful. Was like awful.
It's disgusting, dude.
The worst thing in that buildup of him getting to the location where he needs to be, he has to like push his way through all these people, right? And then when he gets to the place and he's like, no, like you still have like five yards to go.
Yeah, that way to go.
And then he looks up like at the warfare and the guy's like, don't you
there's
do it.
There's no way I'm gonna make it. Yeah.
He's like, there's no way I'm gonna make it unless I run out in the open. And then he goes, and then all the bombs are going off, and the blocking, like the way he trips over like twice, but he gets up and keep like. There's no way that's like, is that improvised? Like they have.
That was what I was thinking. Like, did he just run into that actor?
Yeah.
Or that extra? Because that extra stayed down too.
Yeah, that man was knocked out. Because at a certain point, you can see a scene like that and be like, "Oh, that man just LeBron James flopped," right? But it worked. I thought it was kind of effective doing that. I still think that may be. I love it too. I think that's the scene that a lot of people are gonna argue it's just showy for the case of being showy. That's a big thing that I feel like a lot of people are gonna be bringing up with it. I love there's a scene where he's got to cross the water.
Oh, the water
and you're
scene.
like, how's he going to cross the water? And then you're like, wait, no, how the camera going to get across? And the camera just starts floating over. And then you see the behind the scenes. And I'm a huge fan of the Raid Redemption. And the Raid, the second one, Bernendel. There's a scene in the Raid where it's a race, or it's not a race, it's a car chase. And the cameraman is dressed as the chair in the car. So they pass him, the camera is following the motorcycle, and then it goes inside the car, which means that they pass it while you're coming from behind the car. You go see the cameraman because he's dressed as a chair. So they pass the camera inside, and the cameraman is a chair, and he's holding the camera to capture it in there, passes it to the other guy. All of the behind the scenes for 1917 is that.
Yeah.
They go from like a Steadicam to running to passing it to a Jeep, to a copter, to a drone, all these crazy things.
Not to mention all the like 360-degree frames they're doing at certain points.
And
it's wild. It's insane.
It's crazy. Yeah. And I guess one other thing I'll put out here, because this was like one of the standout thing to me about this movie. And I don't know if you guys like what you guys think of this, but that end quote of the movie actually brought me to like made me tear up. Because it's not an end quote, but it's like the end, like the end text where Sam Mendes' grandfather fought in World War I, and
told us all the stories. This is for you.
For the stories they told us. And there's two moments in the movie where people are telling stories. The first one is with Dean Charles and George, and he's just telling him a story about like this guy who got his ear bitten off by a rat. But he kept telling people that, it got like chopped off by like a German soldier or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And then later, once after Dean Charles dies, and this other company comes in and picks up George.
Right.
And there's like some random soldiers, talking about.
They're driving in the back of that truck.
Yeah, and they're talking just about this like random story, and it's like, that's what, people live in stories, and that's what kept these soldiers going, and that's how like we will remember them. Like, if Sam Mendes' grandfather never told him the story of this, and this movie would have never been made.
The legacy of telling World War stories.
Yeah. Same thing with Dunkirk, and I'm sure both of you gentlemen saw They Shall Not Grow Old.
Yeah.
I saw a lot of the way that whatever bypass filter they put on it really made the faces look like those old photographs. And I was like, wow. Now, granted, they great casting with the actors to look that way, but dude, they put like some a grain on it. And they kind of, when you catch them at a certain point, was the same color and the same like textures that those old photographs had. And I was like, wow. Like the ending says, he was really trying to embody. I don't know what pictures his grandpa showed him, but that's what he was trying to mimic. A lot of that has been happening this year, from The Irishman doing the same thing of mimicking the Rockefeller type colors. Portrait did the same thing. Little Women did the same thing of literally.
One of your favorites, A Beautiful Day in the Neighborhood.
Stop it! You already know. Yeah, they shot with the same cameras and everything. So it's, dude. Oh man, I can't wait till we get to whatever else we have next year going on. But yeah, that's a good point. What'd you think of? I don't want to say the show, but the beginning and the end, ending on the same type of shot. him sitting next to the tree and then it ending with him next to the tree. But of course, at the end.
That to me was one of the biggest Roger Deakins flexes of the whole movie to bookend it with that bit under the tree. I thought it's just like a little beautiful note.
That was dope, dude. And you realize again, he has a family.
Technically, you cannot fault this movie. It is an outstanding technical achievement. Artistically, yes. I might have some qualms with it, but
what you got? Let's talk about that.
Well, I mean, I think it's mostly what I've been talking about in that I didn't feel necessarily the urgency of the story, and I didn't feel immersed in it the way that other films have made me feel. You know, I was in awe of it, but I do wonder sometimes if the technical prowess of it almost took me out of it, not just the cleanness of the cinematography, as I mentioned before, but just the wondering, like, how did they do that aspect of it? And I don't know if that's also because I have minimal, I'm not trying to brag or anything, experience being around cameras and stuff, that I have a curiosity for it. But you know, I didn't feel myself really in the narrative the way that I always wanted to, as much as I was completely amazed by the end product.
So you would be more on it was too showy for its own good.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, I'm not trying to fault the movie.
No. But I get what you mean. Like, on a technical aspect, all the praise.
I enjoyed it. I think that's maybe, like, the difference between it being, like, a great movie and an amazing movie.
Okay. I feel I can't argue with you. For me,
and that's in my mind, my taste. So
no, again, that's a perfect example. Like we were saying, we've been so used to stuff getting inside the Marvel movies do that too. You know, shows do that. The Walking Dead killed the cameraman that one time. Like, we're so used to the camera almost being a character within the thing. Look at Zack Snyder films. His camera moves with it. It zooms in like it's a person's eyeballs. This one, it really felt very godlike almost. So it's very. Interesting to hear that it didn't work for you that way. I think for me, if it wasn't for them killing him halfway through, I would have been like, there's no stakes here.
Right.
This man just jump on top of the trench and just gun it? I don't know about that, you know? But, I mean, I went in for it specifically for the aspect of how did they shoot this? And I was impressed for that. I agree with you. It's not my favorite war. Yeah, it's not my favorite war story. If we're talking about it from like an emotional story perspective, there was 2 scenes. It would have been the one where the brother died, mainly because towards the end, I really did like, and I'm blanking on his name. What's our king's name? Our Stark, who plays the brother at the end.
Richard Madden.
I really loved his piece. Like I keep saying, of him not wanting to accept that his brother had passed. That one really hit for me. But for the rest of the movie, in terms of like the most engaging war stories, technically, you got it. Emotionally, it's probably not top 10 for me. So I feel you there.
Let's talk a little bit about some of those actors, though. The slew of character actors, British actors. Colin Firth shows up. Mark Strong shows up. We just mentioned Richard Madden, and then the last one who we hinted at earlier, Benedict Cumberbatch. Fernando, did you like these sort of cameos? Did you have a favorite of them? A favorite performance?
I did enjoy them because I don't think they took away from our main 2 guys at all. They were just like little cameos, and they did bring that sense of like security when you found out who it was, and you're like, oh, okay. I like the Mark Strong one because that one wasn't in the trailer. Colin Firth and Benedict I knew were in the movie, but I actually think my favorite one was not the biggest actor, but Adam Scott, Andrew Scott from Fleabag, because his character was so like I forgot what rank he was, but like he was put in charge because the
lieutenant.
Lieutenant. Because the guy who was originally in charge died, so he got put in charge. And he was kind of done with everything. He was like, "All right, here's your flare. You know, go over. If you die, try to throw it back because we need it." Like I was like, "Yo, this is great." I really enjoyed his like little cameo. Yeah.
Yeah, and he definitely got across the disposition of most of the soldiers at that point in the war, the kind of war-weary way in which they weren't gonna be very helpful.
Yeah, agreed.
Fernando, Art, did you have a favorite of the cameos of sort?
I would agree because later on when he does the flare, He just tosses it. I was like, yeah, he's probably got to be the best one. He was definitely the most memorable for me. But I agree. I liked the fact of having very well-known names that gave you that kind of security every time he was hitting what I considered a checkpoint.
Yeah,
totally. There is the kind of like meta-ness of it where they're higher ranked and they kind of are like higher ranked in Hollywood, if you want to.
Yeah, I agree. Hey, but these two are on the come up. The main guy, I had seen him in a couple of TIFF movies, so he's definitely got a bunch of stuff that's coming out.
Yeah, George McKay, I think, is
he was
showing
in,
up. And I'm sure we'll see more of Gene Charles Chapman after this, too.
For sure.
He was in The King as well. So he's just got a thing for dying in things. So, hopefully he'll make it towards the ending of a movie eventually or a show. Yeah. But overall, I loved it.
Yeah, George McKay was in Captain Fantastic. That's what I've seen him in.
That was the other thing. I saw him. It was the Australian movie of
Kelly Gang?
the Kelly Gang. Yeah. I am not a fan of that movie, but it does a great job of showcasing despicable people. So it was good to see him in a role where he was a little bit better. He was more of a hero. But yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if you had any final thoughts, Fernando, maybe?
Yeah, I'll say, because I don't think we touched on it, another scene I love and I need this version of the song was when he like gets to the final one and they're like all in that circle, and that one
Wayfaring Stranger,
when the guy's singing Wayfaring Stranger, love that song, and he just like sits down and like takes his first rest in God knows how many hours, and he's just there, and then when they finish, he's like, "Oh wait, I still have my mission to do."
Yeah.
And then he's like, "Where's D Company or whatever?" And then he books it. But that song, like, I thought was very emotional for me.
It was a perfect little respite too from the tense moments, because that's some of the most fraught part of the film when he's escaping there. I mean, the way in which it is able to weave through all these moments is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And, I think anybody who is aspiring to be in film production could take a note from this movie and watching just some of the ways in which they go about stringing things together, because we've talked about the cinematography, but I even think from a writing aspect, or if you talk, like we talked about before, the production aspect, you've got to figure out, a movie is a series of puzzles to solve, and this film solved all those puzzles in a really unique and interesting way.
Yep.
So it makes it well worth the watch for anybody, I would say.
Agreed.
So that's about all for this edition of Let Us Explain on Intercut. You can catch more from me, Zach Shevich, by going to Twitter, Instagram, or Letterboxd and following @ZShevich, or check out my YouTube channel, youtube.com/multiplex show. Fernando, where can people catch more from you?
Yeah, you can follow me on Twitter @border_logic, and also keep up with the ATZ website, which is www.theatzshow.com, for all your writing needs.
All right, where can we find more from you?
You can find me at The A to Z Show, or Let Me Explain on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube, or you can find me every week here on the Intercut Podcast.
Yes, you can listen to every episode of the Intercut Podcast on iTunes, on SoundCloud, on Spotify, on your favorite podcatcher. I like Overcast. And then make sure you're not just subscribed to the audio feed, but to the video feed as well on youtube.com/IntercutPod, where you can catch our bright smiling faces as we break down the latest for all of you. Find new episodes of Intercut every Friday, as well as these sporadic Let Us Explains. And please leave us a comment, like the videos, consider heading over to iTunes and leaving us a 5-star review. It's been 2 months since our last Apple Podcast review. Fernando's beginning to think that you guys don't like him, so please make Fernando happy and leave us a 5-star review.
Maybe they're telling us something. I'm kidding. I'll leave a 5-star review for you, Fernando.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Like our Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter pages. All of them are @IntercutPod to get updates throughout the week from Art, from me, from Fernando, from all of our guests here on Intercut. Thanks again for tuning in, and until next time, hope is a dangerous thing.